Thank you guys so much for joining us for this really personal and important conversation around birthing. I am so excited to welcome Jessica and Kristen to the conversation, who are two incredible women that I look up to, and have really kind of opened the conversation. Personally, birthing is something that I think transformed me in a way that I never imagined. I had a little bit of a traumatic birth. um, and I think knowing more information going into that experience would have been helpful, but also knowing that I can't control everything is just, I think, set me up for parenting and what the future really looked like. So, with that, I'd love for you guys to introduce yourselves. Jessica, I'd love to start with you. What made you want to become a midwife, a doula, all the things, and yeah.
Yeah. So my name is Jessica Diggs. I'm a licensed midwife, a former doula, which is weird to say, and a reproductive health educator. So I taught childbirth ed, sexual health. I specialize in out-of-hospital birth. So I work at a birth center now, but I did home birth for a long time. And I got into this work because I wanted people to know their options and truly be able to make an empowered choice. I don't care what that choice is at the end of the day, but I wanted to make sure you're not haunted by I didn't know. And for me, that looks like empowering you as much information beforehand so that you can go in confidently and make the choice that makes the most sense for your body and your family.
Yeah, I wish you were my educator. Can we rewind 10 years? And Kristen, love to hear from you. Love to hear your history and also we'll get into it, but I want to hear your birthing experience too.
Oh, we'll get into it. I have three of them. They're all so different too. I'm Kristen Gallant. I'm half of Big Little Feelings. My other half is Dina Margolin, and we started Big Little Feelings because we just didn't see anything out there that we wanted to see as moms ourselves. It's as simple as that. We thought everything was really buttoned up and clinical and really kind of made you feel bad at the end of the day. So we just thought out to do our own thing, and we're so grateful for it taking off.
Yeah, it's such a big deal. Everyone I know follows you, so you're
Oh,
doing something right. And I think just
I see.
the honesty around parenthood is just so needed right now. And so on that topic, I'd love to talk honestly about the big day, about when it comes to the big day, which is your birth of your child. And what do you do? How do you decide if you're going to do it at home? I know you have strong feelings about that, Jessica. How do you decide if it's in the hospital? Like, take me through that.
Clinically, personally, I don't care what you choose. I tell people to choose based off where you're going to feel the safest. And that is a question that only you can answer. I am never going to talk someone into a home birth or into an out-of-hospital birth. I don't want to be in that space with you when you're nervous and in a space you just don't feel safe. And there are options. Like I say often, it's so cool to be on this side of technology as a woman where you actually get a choice. You didn't have to give birth at home because that was all that existed in early 1900s, 1800s. And you also can give birth safely out of hospital because we're so close to hospitals and we have skilled providers. So for me, it's like digging deep to like, who are you normally pre-birth? Where do you resonate in terms of interventions? Do you want pain management? If not, then maybe you want to consider out of hospital with a skilled provider, not just doing it by yourself.
What's a skilled provider and what is a midwife?
So you have midwives and you have some OBs who do out of hospital birth, but midwives typically dominate that space as our training was based predominantly out of the hospital. So midwives are people who thrive in normal physiological birth. So like we know normal enough to also see when things are veering from normal and correct course or treat or transfer to the hospital. We specialize in well-being for the whole individual. So it's not just the birth. If you're, say, a third-time mom, I'm asking you about how you're navigating parenting while pregnant and if with your other two kiddos. Like we talk about that more in your pregnancy because like you've done the pregnancy part before. Now it's like you're doing pregnancy with 2 other kids. How are you thriving or not thriving in this experience? Like, I'm asking you more questions about your full experience and not just the individual clinical stuff. And then we're skilled in all the things that keep you safe, the same as a hospital, which people don't realize. Like, I have a whole bunch of medicine and Pitocin and oxygen and IV fluids that we bring to the birth too.
I know we were just talking about that. I want to know what's in your bag. We'll talk. That'll be the next conversation. Kristen, how did you navigate where you gave birth and your birth plan? Did you have one?
Yes. So I started out on one side of the spectrum, which is sort of funny. This is how motherhood goes. That's like what you were alluding to, is you have this plan in your head and then everything changes in 8 years. So the first birth that I had a very opposite end. I was going to give birth at home. I was going to breastfeed that child for 7 years. I ended up breastfeeding her for 3, and I should have done it less. And I wanted to do it unmedicated. At the end of the day, actually, I chose to give birth with midwives in a hospital because, like Jessica was saying, that's just what felt safest to me. I understood that, my sister is a nurse and we have a big medical family. So I really wanted the best of both worlds. And I thought that was a fantastic happy medium. And it turns out I really wanted an epidural. So thank God I was also in a hospital. And then that shifted. By the time the second came, I knew all I wanted was an epidural. Third one, all I wanted was an epidural. It didn't come in time, but I had a plan. And I also knew that the first one, that I had such a detailed plan, nothing went according to plan. So the second two, my only plans was give me an epidural, and even that didn't work out with the third one. So now I know to just be incredibly flexible in motherhood and birthing.
I had the same experience. I don't know if you guys watched The Business of Being Born. I think I watched that and it scared the crap out of me. And I'm like, I know exactly what I want to do. And everything that I planned didn't turn out the way I planned. I remember bringing fake candles to the hospital, and I created a playlist. It was like Adele and all this amazing stuff. And all I wanted was the music off. And I never took the candles out. And I was like, this is not what it was just the opposite that I envisioned.
Anytime someone brings up The Business of Being Born in a conversation, and they're like, this is what brought me here. And I'm like, red flag. Because it's coming off of the back of fear. You are talking to me for out of hospital because you're now fearful of the interventions in the hospital. And that's not a reason to have an out of hospital birth or an unmedicated birth. And it already sets you up for ruined expectations. So I'm always like, red flag. Love that it informed you. But let's really unpack why you want an unmedicated birth or home birth or birth center birth. And it can't be because I'm scared of interventions at said hospital. Let's figure out how to actually advocate in the hospital if you really want to be there and avoid those interventions if that's what you choose. But let's not pick something way over here when you really don't want that. You're just scared. And we can't let fear dictate our choices because it sets us up for trauma down the road and in any setting. So I'm always like, red flag, but I love that you watched it, but red flag.
So
I did too. I think that's how a lot of us go in there, and that's not necessarily how the successful outcomes happen. I think you're spot on. I also did sort of like, I'm not going to name the exact thing, but I did sort of a hypnosis type of thing that was for unmedicated birth, which was great, except there was one very big rule, and that was you were never to think of or speak of if you needed an epidural or if something went wrong, because then you're sort of willing that into existence, or you are going to just crumble and break down. And so that was the worst thing that I could have possibly done, because I didn't know anything else that was happening in that room once I decided to have the epidural, which was almost right away, by the way. And so everything after that was like just such a shock, because in my mind I was supposed to be like rainbows, bunnies, no epidural. Say, when you lead with this like fear and you're only going to do one way, that was honestly the most traumatic part. I wish I had been educated, like you're saying.
Yeah, I'm always like, if we're going to do hypnosis or anything, it's one tool in our toolbox. One. It's not going to be the thing you hang your hat on.
Tell us, what is hypnosis?
Like people will do hypnosis for birth. It's basically you do the hard work in pregnancy of listening to tracks to help you relax. And essentially, if you've done that work throughout the pregnancy, when you use it in labor, you'll drop into deep relaxation. And it works really. I've seen it work really well. Like one birth, and I was like, she's faking, right? No, she's like, it was so shocked. I was like, this can't be right. And then I've seen it work for parts of the birth, where it really works in early labor for them to rest and not give it so much attention. And then in active labor, they switch to something else. But to hang your hat, and often it's marketed in a way that this is the only thing you need. And it's crap. It's crap. So I'm always like, you often feel disappointed. Like, I hear more disappointment in that type of childbirth ed when people think that that's the only thing they're going to use. And it's just like, it's labor. A person is coming out of your body. To think that just listen to a track is the only thing that's going to get you through that is wild to me.
And everyone's body is so different. And I don't think I realized that. I listened to everything I could do for free because I was so broke at the time. And I couldn't afford a doula. We just talked about that. That's a very interesting conversation. But like, I couldn't afford the classes because I was just starting Ritual. My husband and I were like penny pinching. So I was listening to everything on YouTube. And it's just crazy when none of it works and you realize your body is just so different from everyone else's. And I remember my third pregnancy I did do my third childbirth experience, which I did in a hospital. And somehow I saw the contractions of the person in the room next to me on the screen overlaid with mine next to it. And I was like, oh my God, mine are so much like spikier, And I was like, maybe I am having just like a worse time than this person in this other room. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, everybody's body is different. I mean, even your individual 3 pregnancies, contractions probably felt different in each one of them. Everyone's body in labor is different. And that's when I'm like, I hate the conversation that you're supposed to fit into this box to give birth. And it's just like, we're people. Like, we're wildly different humans. Why would there be a checkbox for this and the same for parenting? Like, no, there needs to be a lot of spectrum. So for me, when I talk about birth plans, it is from a set intentions of how you want to feel. And not physically feel because you're uncomfortable, but like, even if shit goes awry, I don't know if I can curse, but even if it goes awry, like, what do you want to feel? Do you want to feel seen? Do you want every medical thing explained to you? Do you not want to know anything? Do you want your partner present for everything? Like, what do you want to feel so that is what you hold on to and you're not haunted by like what went wrong versus things went wrong, but I was everyone explained things to me. I never felt alone.
I wanted to feel like I had an orgasm during birth, but that didn't happen.
Dina did too. Dina was like at one point really obsessed with making that happen. I applaud you both. That was never part of my journey.
I've only seen 2. And
wow! Oh my God!
Almost 1,000 births, pushing 1,000. Yeah, 2. One actively made it happen. It was very uncomfortable for everyone in the room. She was like humping a pillow, and you didn't know what was. I was like, "Is that really what I'm saying?" All right, just stare at the window. Yeah, and then one intentionally like used the vibrator with her partner in the bathroom.
Wow. I just can't even imagine. Even the pain was so traumatic for me. I can't imagine it being enjoyable.
It wouldn't cross my mind. Like, as an option.
But like, can you imagine having an orgasm before your epidural?
Girl, my husband said that he was like 3 floors down and he could hear me screaming for the epidural 3 floors down. So I don't think the orgasm anywhere near birth was my experience, but I love that for those people. Like, that's great.
Were you
wild?
I'm wondering, so how did you feel when your birth plan didn't go as planned?
Well, the funny part too is we did have a doula, and we had a safe word because you're not really supposed to. Like, if I say epidural, they're not going to give me epidural. So it was pretty early on. It's like I was 3 centimeters. I wanted to make it at least like 8 or something, whatever. All the rules you give yourself. And I just remember the doula really trying to talk me out of it. And I'm like, Mexico, Mexico, Mexico. I'm screaming Mexico. And I think once it hit, I think I was disappointed after the fact, but in the moment I was actually really relieved because the epidural worked and it was wonderful. But after the fact, I definitely felt like I was a failure, that I couldn't do it the way. Did it harm my baby? All that fear mongering with the business being born and everywhere else is like, did I ruin her? That's where it really started, honestly, because in pregnancy, even with her, I did things just so, like I have my whole life.
Mm.
And so I thought that if I did things just so, then she would be perfect and she wouldn't be harmed and all of that. So the birth was really the very first experience that I ever had in parenting. Since then, I've had thousands. But the very first experience of, oh my God, is she destroyed forever? Is she ruined? Did I ruin her biology? Is she going to have all of these, things wrong with her because we got an epidural?
I don't have kids, and that like infuriates me that is how you walk into your parenting experience feeling already at a deficit of I've harmed her. That is,
Yeah.
And we set parents up for this all the time with the way in which we talk about options and misinformation around medication and the use of tools, and then we're like, take this little precious thing and go raise it while feeling like crap because we told you that you are wrong. Like, it's wild, and I'm so sorry that was your experience.
Thank
so
you.
many people
I mean,
experience.
I think it's a lot of people's experience. I think it's a huge part of postpartum anxiety, depression, because
Yes.
as we all know, you don't get a second to breathe. And that is the rest of early postpartum experience. It's breastfeeding, it's formula, and you feel like a failure for formula feeding. You feel like a failure for combo feeding. You feel like all these little things that you were supposed to do, or you are ruining them. That's what your brain tells yourself. Co-sleeping, not co-sleeping, every single tiny decision that you make. I really feel like it starts with pregnancy, it starts with birth. And when no one really does look at it as a toolkit, like you're saying, it's usually looked at such two extreme polarized views that if you're in sort of a circle of friends that has a view on this side, then you're going to feel, and if you're on this side, then you're going to feel, and that's where you tend to go, right? You're in the groups that are for respectful sleeping and respectful breastfeeding. So you are only consuming the one side rather than what you're saying, which is there are all these tools. And I guarantee you're going to be a better mother if you meet somewhere in the middle and use a tool when you need a tool and then throw away the other thing. It's all in the middle.
Yeah, when I used to teach, I would either like in a class or like start a class, like the thing you need to take home is if someone's like, I'm doing this thing because of this, learn the phrase. That sounds like a great choice for you.
I bet if you say it in a certain way, it can really like depends on how you say that. It can really
but also it should be in pregnancy and all the unsolicited advice. Like that sounds like a great choice for you. Like I think it should be a little sass to it.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I genuinely mean it too. It's like I don't want to do insert thing, but I'm really glad that you've made that choice for yourself. That feels great.
I'm gonna use that phrase when men give me business advice. Okay, that's a great
It's a good one.
Great tip. Well, yeah, it's interesting. I think the shame, I don't know, I also ended up having an epidural, and after 30 hours of labor, I felt like a failure. And I felt like it took me into that postpartum phase where the first child, it was really, really freaking hard. It does not set you up for success. And I think, how do you bounce back from that? You know, how do you not, see all your friends giving birth in beautiful tubs in their house or having orgasms, and you're like, give me the pain medication. Like, I'm not strong enough, and I think seeing that birth is such a natural thing everyone's doing, like, that's what went through my mind. I was like, wow, millions and millions of people have gone through this natural thing, and I am not strong enough to do it without medication. What's wrong with me?
Yeah. Kristen, do you want to answer how you bounce back? I have a thought, but it's I have my own thoughts, but go on.
I did not bounce back. To answer your question, I had really, really horrible postpartum anxiety, and I held that baby 24 hours a day for 7 months. I never slept. I didn't bounce back well from it. I really was confused about what kind of a mom I was, and I really, like I said, think it all really started from that point. I think around month 5, 6, or 7, I went to therapy, and that was really the only way, because I don't think people really realize how traumatic birth is. You don't necessarily need to be on the brink of death, which does happen, by the way, but you can have a very normal birth and still have it be incredibly traumatic for you. So I mean, I think therapy for birth in general, even if it went great, you should always be processing that. And that's really when it turned the corner, is once I could process it, do some EMDR, really get it out.
Yeah, I love that. 100% agree. I have one just comment, and I will talk through ways in which people process, but I'm also like, from the beginning of giving birth, women have always sought to reduce the pain. From biting on coca leaves and indigenous parts of South America to taking peyote, like people sought to take away the pain. It is not like women have been doing this for forever. Yes, with something. They often try to fix something. In many, many different cultures, women were consuming some type of drug to lessen childbirth. And that's just a reality. And so the fact that we have the option for an epidural doesn't mean you're a failure. It means like we got great technology now that works for the most part. And I think it's more of like choosing that. And that's the piece that kind of haunts people, is like you had an expectation and you didn't choose it. And then you did do something that was different, and it's like owning that. Like I've been to so many births, and there's been many people where I'm like, girl, I would have tapped out a long time ago. Good for you that you did, but like also I would have changed course a long time ago. To process that shift, whether it is a choice or a medical emergency, I always tell people write it down sometime early in the postpartum period. Like set a timer for 10 minutes, because what is time in the early postpartum period? 10 minutes just to like free write. Get it out of your body so that you aren't haunted, because that's the last thing we want you to do, is just to be like your fever dream and like with a newborn, and you're just haunted by your experience. So get it out of your body. The same for your partner or whoever else was there to witness, or record it. Some people actually do a lot of voice memos these days. Therapy, 100%, and then postpartum support groups, even when it's just other people to process the experience. As much as you can move it out of your body, it is really, really, really helpful and really powerful to processing what happened. Even if it is a good experience, like I say this, it's a lot to move a person out of your body, whether it is vaginally or cesarean. It is really hard to do. Like you need to be processing what you just did.
It's so funny when I think about going into that hospital, prepping for the birth plan. It's so focused on the baby that it's not focused on you, right? Like everything you got in the bag, you got the cute little onesie and the little hat and the bow and everything you're going to take the picture on. And then one of our scientists on our team often talks about the mom is the wrapper on the candy. The candy gets eaten and the wrapper gets like thrown out. Mm-hmm. And I think nothing could be closer to that truth. Yeah. So like, you know, it's almost like when you're planning your hospital bag or your toolkit, like, can we get more women focused on themselves? Mm-hmm. Like, how 50-50, guys, like not like 0 and 100. Yeah. And like, what would be some of those tools? You guys said therapy. Like, what are the tools that we can do? Because honestly, like, it probably sets us up to be better parents. It probably helps the kid if we're 100%. Taken care of. How do we take care of ourselves, like leading into that birth and beyond?
The best thing you can give your kid is a healthy, happy parent. So it's like, how do you get there? Like nothing else matters. So whether it's mental health, physical health. So I'm always like, bring a charcuterie board. Like, what's going to make you feel like you? Bring some like face masks, some spritz, all the fancy stuff. Like you should be splurging right now. Your kid needs a onesie, and like the hospital or your birth center has diapers. Like they need one outfit. Everything in there should be about you. Like, what's gonna make you feel good and cozy and nice. And then I'm always like, at the birth center, most people eat their first meal. So I'm always like, bring something yummy. I will judge you for your first meal. If I don't judge you for anything else, like bring something good. And that's like bull. Like Denny's is the only thing open around there for 20 minutes. I'm like, you can't eat Denny's after you just gave birth. I want you to bring something good, something nourishing, or splurge on like a big ass pizza or a burger or like something yummy. But like remind them to take care of them.
Yeah. What do you think, Kristen?
First of all, do you remember like the since you gave birth in the hospital, do you remember like the turkey sandwich, the dry turkey sandwich post-birth? Because I have a core memory of that and it being amazing. Like you don't even need I can't even imagine if I had amazing food, because that dry ass sandwich was the best thing I had eaten my entire life.
We
yeah,
just said
honestly,
that.
first meal post-birth is like the best meal you'll have in your whole life, and I don't think you
You're
realize that. So like, yeah, you're right. It almost doesn't matter what it is, but it's even better
Yeah.
if you have it planned, right?
I was just
Yeah.
telling Kat, your senses are heightened. Your taste buds, your smell, like everything
Oh.
in labor because of the hormones. This is like a cocktail of hormones. Like either things smell really good or really bad or taste really good. Like people have a popsicle and I'm like moaning and I'm like, it's not that good. But it is for them. So that turkey sandwich.
I was telling you, yeah, I was like I still remember the smell of my husband's sandwich while I was in labor, and I was like, it's the most disgusting smell, and the whole like I hated him in that moment. And I'm like, is that normal?
Yeah,
Yes.
that happened to me too. And every time my husband would like make a noise or like he took a nap in the middle of
Uh-huh.
it, and he's like snoring while I'm having to. I'm like, you bro, why don't you come back, circle back when we're ready to go? Because everything you're doing is bothering me.
I'm like,
I do think a great toolkit is also after the birth. I mean, I think it's more common now, but we focus so much on the actual birth, and that at least is the way it has always been. Is like, I can't tell you how long I prepared and did those hypnosis things for 9 months just for birthing day. And birthing day is the biggest day ever. But when I came home, I mean, I had no support. I had no plan for meals. I had no plans for anything, right? So I also think taking care of yourself is setting yourself up for success
yeah.
afterwards. That's the best thing
100%.
you can do. And you always think about the baby. I had everything on earth for that baby, every bouncer, every carrier, every type of diaper, just in case she didn't like a certain diaper. But like you were saying, focusing on what you're going to need after birth. I can't imagine what a different kind of postpartum experience that would be. I had that with my third. And now I think there's all kinds of sort of like meal delivery things. If you don't have anybody close by, a postpartum doula, which is what I did, absolute game changer. Somebody that just comes over and nourishes you the way that our ancestors used to be nourished when they gave birth. It's just a woman who comes over and says, what do you need? They just cook your food, they put away your laundry, they clean, and you just snuggle your baby. That was the best thing I think I've ever done for my third, not my first.
Yeah. It's often in retrospect, like second or third timers planning. Birth is like blimp. They're like, they know now. They're like, this is a blimp in the timeline. Postpartum is where they invest. And it sucks that we don't start that from the beginning. And also we don't talk about it. Even as healthcare providers, as a midwife, a little bit different, but most healthcare providers don't talk about it prenatally of like setting yourself up for success after this baby. When we know postpartum mood disorders are the number one complication in childbirth. Like number one. And many of them are avoidable because we see other countries have way better stats than we do when they actually have good care. So I'm like, I'm with you. I don't have kids, partly for all of this.
You see too much to have kids. I feel like most midwives and doulas don't have kids because they're like, I got to see it.
Honestly, it's motherhood. It's not the birth. The birth I would be excited about. I'm like, oh, and also because I don't have hangups around choices. I'm like, oh, I get an epidural, I don't. Who cares? It's postpartum. Like, no, we're doing parents such a disservice with how we don't take care of you after this baby and all throughout parenting. And we see it in your well-being. We stack on this crazy life transition that is birth, the trauma, hormones, life changes, financial shifts, work-life balance, body image, and we're like, go, thrive, a little sleep deprivation and top it all off.
And be a good partner, too.
And be a good partner. And it's like, that's wild.
Like, why aren't you intimate? Where's the intimacy?
It's wild, and it's so unfortunate that we do that to people. So no, I feel you. I'm like, who's feeding you? Your kid's gonna be fed. They're fine. Who's feeding you? Who's taking care of your bottom? You're bleeding for weeks. How are you changing your diaper? Your bathroom or visits are gonna be hours long. Like, who's taking care of you? And even if it's like, I wish we did connect for your first, because I love putting together care plans on like shoestring budgets. I'm like, let's get creative of how people can take care of you.
Give us the tips for care plans on a shoestring budget, because I feel like not everyone, given the healthcare system that we have, not everyone, it's a privilege, but an incredible privilege to have a midwife and a doula and a postpartum doula. I wish it was not. We
Yeah.
were talking about this earlier. Like, it should be covered
Yeah.
to set us up for success. But let's say you have a shoestring budget. What does a care
Yeah.
plan look like?
I'm gonna do postpartum care because
Let's do that.
birth. I'm like, ooh, we're gonna be here all day. But like
No,
for
let's be here all day.
nourishment, I'm like, you have meal trains. You have friends who want to help. They may not know how because our postpartum etiquette sucks. We just don't have experience doing it well. So it's like, give them very clear details of like, we love these restaurants, we love this order, we love these types of meals, and send it out for people. It is, I would say, every other day someone is bringing you a meal. You're likely gonna have leftovers. You do it for the first month. That's 12 slots. You have, 8 to 12 people to do that. And even if they're good friends, that's fine. Milk, you deserve a meal from these people. You had a baby. That's one way to do it. It's free. Like, people want to help. They often just don't know how. For lactation, many lactation consultants have $10 drop-in sessions. Like, find those little things where it's like, okay, second Tuesday of every month, Lactation Lala has $10 drop-in. There's still everything from the hospital. You already pay for it. Take it all. Like, set up your little postpartum station. You didn't pay for that. Or my others. And like, sleep. You can either do shifts with your partner or have a friend or sibling. I did postpartum for my sibling and my best friend. I stayed with them for 2 weeks. I kicked my best friend's partner out of the bed. He worked night shifts anyway, so I'm like, get sleep.
Right.
I'll sleep in the bed with her and the baby. Like, it's not a big deal. Use your family and friends when you can, and also set the expectation like, you're coming to help me, not just hold this baby. Like, that is the reality. And if you could afford it, save every penny for a postpartum doula. They're
Yeah.
worth their weight in
Okay,
gold.
you guys both said postpartum doula. What is a postpartum doula? Kristen, how did that
Yeah, what did
change?
yours do?
What did
Period.
yours do, and how did that transform your birthing experience, and postpartum experience the second time?
Yeah, I think, by the way, postpartum doula is different in every state. So I'll tell you, I think some postpartum doulas do overnights. My postpartum doula was, I think, 2 hours a day. I don't remember. I think I only even did it twice a week. And even that, because I was on a shoestring for my first 2
Mhm.
births. I mean, we couldn't afford, there was nothing that we could afford.
Mhm.
So I just even did 2 times a week, 2 hours a day. And I used it the way that I wanted to use it. And that's what they said. They were like, we could do laundry, we can take your trash out, we could do dog sitting, we can do anything. And because this was my third baby, I handed them my baby and said, I want to go to sleep. And like, they were able to extend him when he was maybe a little bit hungry, so I could get every minute of sleep I could possibly get. For that first baby, I would have felt too guilty. I would have never done that. But with him, I wanted to sleep. I knew he'd be okay. And they oftentimes then, when I would breastfeed, they would make me hot food. And that's all it was for me. But I swear by just that, because the first 2 experiences were all me. It was all isolating. I had postpartum with both of them, and there was no one. So just knowing you had any support, and you could sit on a couch and they could refill your water and wash your pump bras for you, it was incredible. It was a game changer.
Yeah. And I think that's all it is. Like, a good postpartum doula is kind of getting in where you feel, where they fit in and where you need them.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be the sister, girlfriend, auntie, mom that you just need, and you don't have to have the expectation that you owe them anything to your baby. They're often going to help with sleep, optimizing your rest. If they do overnights, that's literally the bulk of that type of care. But if the daytime is helping you take naps, making you meals, helping you with feeding, whether it's formula or breastfeeding, helping you like with basic education. I did a lot of like partner education of like making sure that am I doing the diaper right? And like just someone to be like, yeah, you're killing it, Did I wrap them right? Yeah, like just a lot of like thumbs ups. I liked parents personally where I was an extra set of hands and I wasn't just doing their childcare, because that's not my vibe. And in LA, you can get all types of things here. But I like the 2 to 3 times a week parents where I'm like, I'm just a set of hands, and Jessica's coming on Tuesday. If shit hit the fan on Monday.
Probably so
And,
excited
like,
to
you're
see
so
you.
excited.
They're so
Like,
excited. They're
yeah.
waiting at the door for you.
They're like, oh, finally. But also, like, Wednesday, like, we get to try it on our own. We get to, like, transition into this, and we know we have the support if we need it, versus someone just doing it for you, who isn't really my clientele. But Like I loved it, and it's there. My shift was always different. It's really, what did you need today?
I love that we're talking about birth, and we just spent most of the episode talking about postpartum. No, I'm serious. I actually love it because I think that once you've had a lot of kids or you've had experience with childbirth, you realize just like
It's a blimp.
it's a yeah, but when you're pregnant, and I think a lot of people will be listening to this when they're pregnant, you're like freaking out about this single moment.
Yeah.
And you're freaking out about that, you're freaking out about your registry. And I'm like, how do you know, maybe we just change the registry to be like 50% for mom and postpartum, right? Like, can we do that
Yes.
as a culture?
Yes.
That would go a long way.
Yes. If I'm ever invited to baby showers for friends, I don't go to clients, but I always bring mom a gift. It's never for the baby.
My gift when someone's given birth is never for the baby. And people are like, what? You didn't bring me a blanket? I'm like, no, you'll get plenty of those.
No.
You don't need all the other stuff.
No.
But anyways, yeah, let's get back to birth a little bit. I love also, Jessica, I realized one thing we didn't talk about is the difference between a doula and a midwife.
So a doula is a non-clinical birth and postpartum option. For birth, they are going to be really, really skilled at educating you about your options and helping you uphold whatever plan you set in place, but also not holding shame if it changes. Like they should hold space well if the plan changes. They're really good at supporting your partners and giving them tools about how to support you. They're great at comfort measures. And they're the consistent support no matter where you are. So they're there in your room the whole time. Your nurse, if you're in the hospital, comes in and out. Your doctor is not there until the very end. Most doctors aren't. Even your midwives, like they're there typically at your house or before you come to the birth center or before you go to the hospital, long before your provider, including midwives. So doulas are a game changer in bridging the care between you and your care provider. I was a doula for a long time, and I honestly grieve that role, even compared to being a healthcare provider. It's just someone who has your interests at heart, and that's it. That's it. With the midwife, we are specializing in normal birth, but we are healthcare providers. So I'm licensed by the Medical Board of California, just like every physician is, which people don't realize. And I can treat everything from a hemorrhage. I can suture your vagina. I can just catch a baby in any place, and also do all of your clinical care. I do PAPs, I do gynes, and many midwives do abortion. Like, we do it all, but people don't realize we are just normal healthcare providers. So I'm more synonymous with the OB minus surgery. We're not surgeons, which OB-GYNs are all surgeons. So midwives work in hospital, home, and birth center. If you're a midwife and you're wanting to be out of hospital, then my training was predominantly in out of hospital settings. So I worked at birth center and home birth with home birth midwives for all of my schooling, so that I got good in that setting, because that's what I wanted to do. But I was a doula for so long that I can navigate a hospital space really well too. So it works well for if we have to transfer, because we can't guarantee where you give birth.
Right. That's so helpful. What's in your bag?
You're obsessed with this bag.
Yeah.
I do have a really cute midwife bag, which she keeps referencing. In my bag, I take to like a prenatal or a postpartum visit. I have a baby scale. I have a stethoscope. I have a Doppler to listen to heart tones. I have urine cups for samples. If you're like, something's weird with my vagina, let's take a sample. I have a blood draw material. I have, what else is in there? It's like the Hermione Granger bag. It's just like so much stuff comes out of that thing. I have a speculum for pap smears at home. Yeah, I have everything in that bag to do a visit in your home if we needed to.
And Kristen, what's in your bag?
What's in my bag?
I'm just kidding.
My God.
You're mom of three, I'm sure.
You don't want to know what's in my bag.
No,
I think there's like rocks and stuff.
No, okay. What's in your second, not your first birth hospital bag, but how did your hospital bag change from birth 1 to birth 2? Want to know?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, you're spot on with what you said earlier. The first birth, everything was for the baby, and it was all picture perfect stuff. So it was like stuff for her picture when we're done, and the matching headband, and all the stuff that they in the end. I don't even think she wore it. She was like naked, and it was beautiful that way actually. For the third birth, I only brought stuff for me. So I brought pictures that my kids had drawn because I knew that would give me some strength, and I would see them, and that would be amazing. I did bring candles. I never set them up. I basically brought everything for postpartum because I knew the hospital had everything you needed. I did not, like you said, we're paying for those diapers. I'm using their diapers. You know what I mean? I'm using their Perry bottle and taking it home. I brought like a cozy robe for myself. I brought cozy blanket for myself. That was the best because hospitals don't feel that great. So having everything was soft and cozy on my whole body. My own socks, my own blanket, everything cozy was what I brought basically.
Oh, I love that.
I definitely stole the adult diapers from the hospital.
Yes.
And those like what are those things that they call like Asian pear wrappers? Ali Wong talks about it in her Netflix special. They're like
the mesh panties.
Yeah, the mesh panties. Oh my gosh, those are the best.
Those are way best. Those are the best ones. They're the best ones. You can't replicate them.
Yeah, they're the best ones. But then I was like, I want to feel sexy like after I give birth, and I don't want to wear those. And so for my second one, I got like period underwear, and like sexy lacy period underwear, and I was like, I don't want to feel like trash after this experience, and that was like a big upgrade for me.
Yeah, usually for the first 48 hours, I'm like, you just use the disposable. And then after that, I usually tell people switch to period underwear if they already are in their wardrobe. But immediately wanting to feel sexy, interesting.
It's like a psychological thing. I just didn't want to feel like, that I had just been through some, that I wasn't, I knew I wasn't back to my normal self, but I wanted to feel like appreciated and cared for in my own way.
I love that.
I love the transition. I think one thing that I think about, obviously we have a supplement company, is that a lot of people just stop taking their prenatal after they give birth, or they keep taking their prenatal, but their nutrients change. The need for it becomes one of the most nutritionally demanding stages of their lives, and it's actually like that to me is like, obviously it was a reason why we created the postnatal, but it was like, how do you take care of mom and make her feel really whole and complete? And I'm like, that goes in my hospital bag.
Yeah.
Along with the cozy blanket.
Yeah.
Did you guys, what are your thoughts on like supplementation in that transition stage? Did you guys, do you advocate for prenatal or postnatal, or like any extra supplements?
I mean, shockingly, in my experience, I even knew to take that ritual vitamin after. Like, I somehow knew that. And by the way, the ritual vitamins were the only ones that would not make me throw up in pregnancy because of how they smelled and they tasted great. And somehow I knew that you needed to keep taking that prenatal vitamin, thank God. And then I think by my third, I maybe stepped that up a little bit. It's real hazy there, but I did some other supplements in addition to like the postnatal and everything. But yeah, you have to. And I think the reason I did it was it makes you stronger for your baby, which is like, again, we need to shift the narrative that it's for you. Like, this is really what you need to nourish yourself.
Yeah. 100% always recommend, make sure people are still taking either their prenatal or have switched to postnatal. I always ask if their brand already has a formula, and if not, recommend yours. But I am always like, that's just like, as a midwife, you're taught to check on the whole person. So I'm like, and when we're visiting for the home visit, the kid's cute. I'm like, how are you doing? How are you nourishing yourself? Are you getting enough calories? Did you eat enough today? And then we go through that and remind them, like, you're still growing a person with your body if you're breastfeeding. So, like, you still need to be eating enough and making enough calories and all the things, especially if they're like, oh, my milk supply. I'm like, well, if you don't eat, why would your body make milk for someone else? Like, if you think, like, your body will turn on your kid very quickly because it prioritizes you. And, like, I'm like, your body's not going to make enough milk when it needs to sustain you. So you need to give your body enough to do what it needs for you, but also for your baby. And that's extra. So eating extra stuff, like eating all the good things, but then continuing to take your prenatals or postnatal.
Yeah, because a lot of nutrients actually get passed through the breast milk and the quality changes. It's reason why we launched our choline product, because we saw this study with one of our scientists on our advisory board from Cornell show the impact that mom in third trimester consuming choline had on adolescent brain development, processing speeds, all the things. And it's like, yeah, it's actually, if you're taking care of yourself, it naturally takes care of the baby. And like, we got to bring it back to that. Yeah. One of the closing questions is like, how do you advocate for yourself during the birthing experience? Obviously one way is to have a doula. How do you advocate for yourself, Kristen?
Good question. The third one was the best one that I had. And I actually brought Dina, who's my best friend and business partner. And I remember that was the one thing we prepped on, because I'm actually hard of hearing. And I'm also like kind of a people pleaser. I just know that about myself. So if they were like, oh, hey, we're going to take your uterus out now, I'd be like, that's okay. I don't really need, I just know myself by that point. Right. So Dina and we would get together, and we would get together often, and she would write everything down. So every person that walked in that room, she'd be like, hey, I'm just letting you know, she gives birth fast. She needs an epidural. And so she really advocated on my behalf. My husband did it the second time, and he did a great job too. But it was really a game changer having a third party person there, so that I could actually go inward and focus on myself, and she could kind of advocate for me.
I think that was like a big thing that I didn't know. I think you expect your partner to be your biggest advocate, but I think that's why people get doulas and get somebody else, because they're also like, in some ways they're also traumatized, right? They're like traumatized by seeing the thing come out of you, or like seeing you in pain, and some partners just freeze or break down. But you're like, why aren't you doing this? Why are you taking a nap? Why are you eating a sandwich? What's wrong with you? You know, maybe I just felt that way.
No, I think a lot of people do feel that way. In Partners' defense, I'm like, birth is a high anxiety experience for someone who doesn't do it all the time. It's just like, it's a new experience for them, and they're often nervous, and people freeze. And the pregnant person is often really shocked by that, because sometimes is even against their normal personality, but they're frozen in a flight or fright state, and it's hard for them to stand up for you. And then they are also not experts, so it's their baby. They're going to do whatever this doctor says, because they're keeping this baby safe in the only little way they can right now. So they often will go against sometimes your intentions. They might, and like, if you really put them inside a pause, they're hopefully not truly going against, but they might be fearful and not stand. Like, didn't want an epidural, we didn't want, but they're just nervous. And we don't leave a lot of room for them to be nervous, because you're in pain, and obviously they need to pull it together, but they are often nervous. And it's really interesting to watch. And I've seen it come out in I've had a dad like boo-hoo cry to his mom in the other room, but we could hear him through the wall. But he was so anxious, and she was actually doing fine. But he was like holding it together for so long that he was like sobbing to his mother. And then he took a walk, and he came back, he was fine. But it's like, it's anxiety inducing for them too. And some like are amazing doulas. Like, I've had some amazing partners at birth, and some of them are like frozen, and their trauma response is like sleep, stare. Like, they're just like, I don't actually know what to do with myself. Where I'm like, give them a task. Like, here's the water fountain. This can't go empty. And they're like, got it.
That's so good. It was like, Dina's my advocate and my medical everything. You need to get me water and like a cold washcloth at all times.
And that's like girlfriends and like doulas, it's just totally different. Whereas a doula is like, I got you. And like, your baby is going to benefit from that. But it's like, I'm talking to you as a person, not you as the incubator. Mm-hmm. And your partner is like, I got you, but also like, I got our baby too. Like, it's just like, it's a different role, where it's like having that girlfriend, that doula who only sees you and understands all of the reasons you're making these choices. And obviously it's for your baby, but it doesn't have to be explicitly stated every freaking time. It's just a different space you get to hold. And so shout out to Dina for holding that for you.
That's right. She's basically a doula.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love the idea of like, okay, doula is totally North Star, midwife North Star. And then there's like, well, if you can't do that, you can't afford it, your girlfriend, your sister, whoever, like actually having someone there helping and advocating for you, and letting go of the pressure that it has to be your partner. I think that
Yes.
I just assumed that my partner is gonna hold it down, not, and then it like takes the pressure off,
takes the
and
pressure
it
off
makes your
everybody.
relationship better. I love that.
Yes, because you don't want to walk into this crazy life transition feeling at a deficit and at odds with them. Like, you just literally don't need that. You need this person to feel like they showed up well for you. And if you have someone else kind of buffering that or doing a different role, and they can just, I'm always like, have a sweet nothing just for your partner. No one else says it. An affirmation that only this person can whisper in your ear, and it lands. Because like him saying like, you're doing great, he doesn't know. And you're like, you don't know. But like him saying something like, our baby's name, who you haven't shared with anyone else, like that just lands so much better in the moment, and you have someone else to say you're doing great. It just makes them feel so much better, and it sets you up for a solid foundation postpartum.
Love that advice. Love it so much. I think, and and some people don't have midwives or doulas, and they have OBs, and I think equally like choosing the right. This is just maybe the last topic. Just like choosing the right OB for you is also really important. I switched OBs from my first to my second because of that. Dina, sorry, I called you Dina. Kristen, do you have, like, how did you choose your healthcare provider?
Yeah, I think everything is different for everyone. The first one, I had really high expectations, and I chose midwives that delivered in a hospital, and it didn't end well, but I don't think that's because they were midwives. It was just a complicated situation. I had a hemorrhage, and I had a little bit of malpractice there. The second and third, I just had to choose the highest risk doctors that were the best, that were going to deliver safely. And that actually brought a lot of peace of mind to me, where I knew to sort of outsource the emotional piece, again, with Dina, with somebody else. And I felt at peace just knowing I had the doctors who were going to be the best saw my high risk pregnancies. And that's how I chose it.
I love that. Yeah, for me, it was less complicated, more of like the connection with, I know that sounds like really crazy, but because you go to all these visits with your healthcare practitioner, and it's like you want to feel like there's a connection, that they feel like they're supporting you. And my OB that I delivered with the last 2 pregnancies was so much more, he was more chill and he was so laid back, and I'm so type A that it worked so well. It just calmed me down.
Yeah. Like, you're so vulnerable. So I think connection is really, like, in pregnancy, you're just so vulnerable to what people are saying. So you need good connection. Because even if people are like so chill, if you're like a person who needs a clear response, that can feel dismissive. So like, you need to know yourself versus pushing it onto the provider to be the one size fits all for you. I'm like, no, do a little shopping in the beginning. Insurance makes that a little hard, but for the most part, there's a few people cover.
Yeah.
And you can always switch. Like, that's not a big deal. And for me, I also want to know who you are. Like, I don't really want to roll out of my bed at 2 a.m. for just anybody. Like, I want to build an actual relationship with my clients. So the more appointments we do have together, it actually works well, that I'm like, oh yeah, I like them. Or I'm so excited for them.
That's exactly
I'm
why.
like, ugh, they're having their baby. I gotta go to this birth.
Okay, we're gonna wrap up, and the last question is, what's your birthing ritual? And so, Kristen, why don't you go first?
I love that. Well, my unofficial ritual apparently is that I scream really loudly for epidurals. And I'm not joking, but my actual ritual, I think, that I did every time. I did do meditation every single time, and I really, really, really swear by it, especially in the beginning stages of labor, where you're sort of just terrified and everybody's asking you a bunch of questions. I would say sort of grounding and meditating was my birthing ritual.
I love that. I love meditation. For me, going to a birth lately has been doing a full skincare routine before the birth.
Ooh.
Partly because when you fill up the birth tub, it makes the room very steamy. So I've been doing like a gel vitamin C serum, serum that's like really thick. So I'm like, I have a nice glow when I walk into your birth, because I'm like, I've done my skincare, and the bathtub is only going to help.
So you're actually getting a facial. You're not delivering a child.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's the best of both worlds.
That's the best place to end. It's a very happy place to end.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for the amazing, raw, provocative TMI conversation that we love to have.
Yeah.
Appreciate you both.